This is the VIP Podcast, Virginia in Politics. Let's listen to host Chris Saxman explore the personalities and policies that connect the Commonwealth. The VIP Podcast is brought to you by the VCTA, Broadband Association of Virginia, and Virginia Free. The views and opinions expressed here do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the VCTA and Virginia Free or our sponsors.
Okay, joining us today on the VIP Podcast, that's Virginia in Politics Podcast, two brand new VIPs out of Southwest Virginia, Senator Todd Pillion and Delegate Israel O'Quinn. Afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Chris.
How does it feel to be the latest VIPs?
Oh, it's spectacular. We don't get called VIP very often.
Well, you should. You're in the legislature. I mean, it's got to be
it's honor of a lifetime.
I feel a little comeback there coming. Big news going on today in the world, obviously, is the 1-6 committee. We're not going to touch on that here, but where are things standing politically as you see it? If you pull back and, someone woke up after 10 years and said, where are things today? What would you tell them today, Senator Pillion?
Well, I think Virginia's in a great position. I think we're moving forward. We have a great new governor, a fantastic lieutenant governor, and a rock solid attorney general. And we have a House of Delegates that's strong and united. And we have a Senate that is on the edge of greatness.
On the edge of greatness. One seat away from a split there with the opposite party. And it feels good to be back in the majority, I'm sure, Delegate O'Quinn.
Absolutely. Being in the minority is it's an unenviable position because you're certainly sort of backed into a corner on a lot of things that you want to get done. And for folks like us coming from Southwest Virginia, there's a lot we need to get done. It's not just things that you would like to mark off of a checklist. It's stuff that we truly need to get finished. And being in the majority certainly helps us to advance the ball on that, no doubt about it.
What did you see in this session, gentlemen, that you thought was the big win? Was there one?
Definitely. I would probably put school construction up there near the top. That's something that our delegation has been working on for several years now. Huge problem that we have identified, not only in Southwest Virginia school districts, but really across the entire Commonwealth. And once we sort of were able to start cataloging those and sort of help folks realize that we had some real critical mass here. After a lot of twists and turns, we made some really big progress on that this year. And it felt like it was a big win for our region and really a big win for school divisions in general.
And that's much to do from the good work that Israel did to get us over the finish line. And it's something that Israel and I have been working on, and like you said, the entire Southwest delegation. And I said, when the governor was down here, we just opened it. We broke ground for a new school, something that's not been done in Southwest Virginia in a long time.
Explain that for our audience who might be living in suburban areas in the Commonwealth, who have new schools being constructed almost yearly in their jurisdictions.
Yeah. Certainly we have very few schools that we break ground on in Southwest Virginia. More often than not, it's out of necessity when you have consolidation of multiple schools and you just absolutely have to bite the bullet and have a new building. But as I always say, most of the school buildings in Southwest Virginia were built during the Eisenhower or Kennedy administrations, and some much earlier. I think one of the ones that's going to be replaced in Bristol with the school that Senator Pillion referenced, I think it was built in 1939. The newest school in the whole division sat right next to where we did the groundbreaking, and it's 50 years old. So, there have been a lot of articles in the news over the last 2 or 3 years of schools with leaky roofs and no air conditioning and
moldy walls
and all just the gamut. And it's just a bad thing to send our kids to school in a situation like that. And certainly it puts kids at a disadvantage, even though our school divisions in Southwest Virginia continue to outpace the rest of the state. A lot of people ask the question, how in the world do you do it? And so It was, like I said, it was big progress for Southwest Virginia, but there are school divisions in Southwest, South Side, Shenandoah Valley, City of Richmond, Northern Neck, lots of school divisions. But to your point, there are a lot of suburban school districts that are building a new school, every year, every other year. And it's just, when you're in that situation, it is a little hard to fathom exactly how bad that situation can actually be for other people.
And the school that Delegate O'Quinn was mentioning, I think we've had every statewide candidate tour that school in the past decade, and we've had numerous General Assembly members come down, tour the school, see what our problems are. And it's truly not an R or a D issue. It is like he was saying, it's a problem that affects inner city. It's a problem that affects rural, and it's one that really I believe that Southwest Virginia and the Black Caucus led to get the attention drawn to it. Jennifer McClellan was leading the fight in the Senate, and of course Delegate O'Quinn got it over the finish line altogether. But it's when your kids are going to school, like you said, with a leaky roof, a moldy wall, or no air conditioning, people don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. They just want the right thing done, and that's how this finally got over the goal line.
And when you say outpacing the rest of the state, are you referring to academic success?
Yeah. So there are limited ways to measure academic success, and one of the ways that we have in Virginia, at least, is through SOL scores. You can argue about whether you like SOLs or whether you don't.
I don't.
Same here. But it's one of the few measuring sticks you really have that can say, this region versus that region. And so Region 7, which is far Southwest Virginia, for the past, several years now, has been number one in the entire state out of all 7 regions.
Wow.
It's pretty incredible given the lack of resources, especially when you look at it on kind of a per capita basis. And like we alluded to, the buildings and facilities that are being used, but a lot of grit, a lot of determination, and it ultimately shakes out to be one of the better regions for K-12 education in the whole state.
And one of our good friends, Frank Kilgore, actually took out a full-page ad in the Richmond Times to talk about just this, about how successful our school systems were in Region 7 in Southwest Virginia as a means to help spur a little economic development. So because when companies look at regions, they want to know that your educational system is sound and their employees are going to be smart and willing to go to work. And I think nothing proves it more than the accomplishments of our local school divisions.
And what is the secret sauce then? Why are y'all number one? What is it? There's got to be something there. It's not happenstance. When I was in the legislature and I represented Highland County was repeatedly the number one school system in the state. And they say, well, it's because you spend so much money per child. It wasn't that. It's only because they had fewer kids and they had smaller classrooms as a result. There's got to be something else there.
I mean, definitely, class size, for instance, definitely does help, if you're not having a 30-to-1 kind of ratio. So certainly that plays into it. But, we have, in Southwest, we have a lot of good school superintendents. We have a lot of good teachers. And I think over the years, for better or worse, we've just kind of gotten used to doing more with less. And you just know you've got to perform at a high level, and you're not going to be getting a whole lot of additional resources to pull it off. And so, you just make up your mind that you're going to do it. And there've been a lot of, we've been asked that question many times, and, it's not like there's any true secret to it. It's not like there's some little something that, that we're holding back that no one else is doing. But definitely I do think that it's the old mantra of, we've truly gotten used to doing more with less.
And the teachers and the administrators are people that you go to church with, that you worship with, you work with, you see in the grocery store, and they're part of your community, and they want your children to be just as successful as they can be. So I think that's a big part of it as well. It's a community-based learning. I mean, it's truly the school in a lot of these areas is the focal point of the community. So that's why it's important
Is that the secret sauce then? Is it the community aspect, the community education? Is it the parental involvement? Is the lack of turnover in the employment? The employees and the schools that create that cohesion. When I would go to visit my schools, and it was like at school, was it legislative back to school week, and I'd go. And I used to be a teacher. I taught for 4 years, and I'd go teach. And I would ask the administrators, what's so good about your school, or what do you need here? What do you need, or what's so great? And to a person, every time the school was at the top of the list of all the SOL scores and all the ratings locally, they said parental involvement.
There's no doubt that we do have a significant amount of that here in Southwest. Again, you have smaller class sizes, and you do have tight-knit communities. Still, where I know in a lot of cases, some of the kids nowadays are still going to school with some of the same teachers that we had when we were in school. And so,
you're
right.
Mine have all retired at this point, probably. So.
I was just being nice. But truly, you're right about the turnover. There's not a massive amount of turnover, but it really is. There's a real community around the schools here. And we always joke that if you ever want to rob a bank, all you need to do is go to Gate City, Virginia on a Friday night, because every single person in the county and every single law enforcement officer is at the Gate City High School football game. And you can walk off with the town.
It's Friday Night Lights. And that's duplicated all throughout the Southwest Virginia. So, and you said parental involvement, community involvement, parental involvement. We definitely have had our fair share of effects from the opioid epidemic. But even if the parental involvement is not there and maybe the grandparents are struggling, that's where I think our teachers know what's happening in their communities lots of times, and they fill that void. And that's why it's so great that this year that we see that in the budget, they're getting another increase in pay. It's certainly been a couple of hard years for teachers and students and parents and the entire country. But that's another thing, another way that I think that we're making sure that we keep our good teachers intact, and especially in Southwest Virginia, where that truly matters to us.
Those dollars stretch a lot more down there than in the suburban areas of the state. Let's move off if we can. Let's talk about what else is going down in Southwest Virginia. First of all, give us the good news. What's happening? What's the economic development picture look like? What are you seeing?
So we just this past year, the end of Northam's administration, the beginning of Youngkin's, we announced that there was going to be one of the largest announcements in Southwest Virginia, at $700 million for the blue nitrile glove company in Wytheville. That's going to be a significant game changer. I think it's over 2,000 jobs. So we're still working on that, making sure the infrastructure is there
to make gloves, to make rubber gloves.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct. So it's a pretty incredible recruit for Southwest Virginia, and for Wytheville especially. And we're excited about that. And we had some more money in the budget this year to make sure that they have all their training programs in place. Now, of course, they're looking at, do we have enough housing? Do we have the employees that we need to recruit to fill these positions? Of course, another exciting thing that we have that's coming up is the opening of the casino in Bristol, the first casino in the Commonwealth to come online. That's happening January or July 7th. July 7th.
This next month.
Yes.
Will be open.
That's correct. It'll be open under the Bristol Casino name. Hard Rock will come on board when it's completed. So this is a temporary casino style.
Okay.
But they're expecting people to come out in droves and have fun if they want to gamble. If not, they can take in the sights. There's going to be a couple of restaurants already open for that, and I know they've really been working hard to hire several hundred employees to get it off the ground. So, and then in turn, you have all the construction jobs that go along with building the remaining portion, the Hard Rock Casino complex. So it's certainly exciting. Israel and I are always working hard. Economic development is so important to the entire Commonwealth,
Right.
but it's vitally important to Southwest Virginia.
Yeah, and that's something that we've kind of, along with the majority leader, Terry Kilgore, have kind of, the three of us have sort of taken a much more hands-on approach. We actually have a public-private partnership that we started 3 years ago, I guess,
Right.
called Invest Southwest Virginia, where we are taking a really active role in economic development, recruitment efforts, and just trying to get out front of some of these things and make things happen. I mean, you've been involved in economic development enough to know that it's so much about repetition. If you get locked in on just making one deal happen and it doesn't happen, then you're going to have a real bad year. At any given moment, we may have, a dozen or more prospects that we're working with and trying to convince that Southwest Virginia is a great place for them to be. And it's something that not very many legislators around the country have actually taken on. And it's far outside our job description, but we felt like it was something that desperately needed to be done. And we're not trying to supplant anyone. I mean, we work with VDP on a regular basis. We're here to be an extra set of boots on the ground and extra set of ears, and
Right.
a lot of the good things we've come across has really been word of mouth. So we've been very active in that. It's something that is, we always joke, it's literally our third job that doesn't pay anything, but it's time well spent.
And we have a great executive director that heads it up. That's Will Payne.
Oh gosh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Will's on the William and Mary board, and so he uses his contacts throughout the Commonwealth to really look ahead at what we could be recruiting and look back at what we should have recruited and try to land those folks in Southwest Virginia. I mean, we've looked at making the blades for the offshore wind, and with some of the companies that we have in Southwest Virginia. So he's really been dynamic in getting some great ideas and getting some prospects out here. And sometimes you might not land that prospect, but that prospect may know someone that wants to come here in the business world. So he's working hard. We couldn't be happier with him right now. He's doing a great job.
What do y'all do any tobacco growing out there?
Very little.
Yeah, there are a few.
I just saw the numbers come out on the tobacco, the menthol ban that FDA is coming up with, and the impact. Got a text from a tobacco manufacturer, said the impact to the Commonwealth with all the different taxes, excise taxes, local taxes, state taxes, and the Tobacco Commission, the master settlements, like $250 million a year.
Yeah,
we're not going to hurt y'all at all.
We're not producing much tobacco out here at this point. That was all in the tobacco settlement.
Most people took the buyout and moved on to something else.
Right. One thing, Chris, that we have been, that is definitely, we're at the top of the wave is with coal production in Southwest Virginia. I feel like the met coal market is huge right now. And I feel like most of our coal producers are taking advantage of that. And our coal guys are back to work and loving it, because they truly.
Explain what met coal is for the audience.
Yeah, met coal's a higher BTU, basically burns
metallurgical.
Yeah, and burns hotter and can be used for
steel making.
Primarily for steel making. You can coke it and make it into steel. Whereas you've got a much lower BTU coal that's thermal coal that's used for electricity. So a lot of the discussion you hear nowadays where coal is sort of vilified as an energy source is directed towards the thermal coal market, while the metallurgical coal market is something that is absolutely crucial to infrastructure and supply chain, and is really, the extraction process is very similar, but it's a completely different animal.
And so it's basically industrial versus commercial applications, right?
One way of looking at it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to put it in layman's terms to the average person.
Sure.
Oh yeah, I get that.
Right. So like he said, met coal burns hotter, so they use that to use it for like steel production and things.
And where does that get shipped to out of y'all?
Our port.
I know that, but who are your customers?
There's Yeah, there are some domestic steel manufacturers, but a lot of it's going to India, and the Australia-China trade war has caused some openings in both of those markets that traditionally one or the other would have filled. So a lot of the developing world that desperately needs steel infrastructure, is buying it as fast as they can get their hands on it, and it's great for the port. It's frustrating to send an American product out of the country, have steel made, and then import the steel back. But that's kind of where we are with manufacturing these days at times.
Yeah, but it's significant production and jobs in Southwest Virginia because of that. So we have some of the best met coal reserves in the country, if not the world, and
Okay,
and they're still available to be mined out, and that's what we're doing right now in Southwest. Yeah, and that's mostly Dickinson, Buchanan counties wise a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the budget. You're coming back again. It's only close to the deadline here.
Yeah, just a couple weeks.
Man, just put a little plug in the business community. Don't do this again, gentlemen, please. Let's just try to get the work done on time.
Yeah, our counties aren't real happy about it either. You can imagine.
No, I can't imagine that they are. Can't imagine that. But thankfully, you've got a lot of money to debate over versus going in and not having the money, which is usually what happens when these extended sessions take place. That will be this Friday. The governor's amendments and vetoes have come down. What have you seen in this package that you like or not like?
Well, I think there's a lot to like, and you've been a part of the budget process, and it's just like any other budget. If the budget at your home or the budget at your business, there are things that you fight for and you get in there and you're so excited about it. And then there's something that your colleague fights for and gets in there and you wish it weren't there. But, there are times that when they also wish things that you're advocating for weren't in there. So that's the budgeting process. No one ever leaves happy with a budget. Or completely happy, I should say. But all in all, I think there's a lot to be excited about in this budget. There's a lot of tax relief. I mean, the state coffers are absolutely overrunning. So I think some of the targeted tax reductions, whether it's through the standard deduction or actual direct refunds, grocery tax, tax relief for veterans. I think there's a lot to be happy about on the tax relief front.
Right. And we also put some investments in public safety, which was great. We've been hearing from our DOC employees and our local sheriff's departments for years now that they felt like they needed to be recognized in the budget, and as well as other state-supported state employees. So we put a 10% pay increase, 5% each year in the budget. So we also increased the starting pay for correctional officers, deputy sheriffs, and regional jail to a base of $42,000, which was great. And I think we increased the sworn officers, the state police, to $51,500. So and then we put some money in for training and aid to local police departments, all things that we should have been doing all along. And we're finally putting our money where our mouth has been. And with that, we also put $45 million in additional funding for school resource officers. So we could finally cross that line and have a school resource officer in every school in the Commonwealth, which is, as we all know, is very important to have those in place. But really investing in public safety. Southwest Virginia, we have a lot of correctional facilities out here. We have a lot of people that take pride in their jobs there, and it's important. It was important for us for those folks to be recognized, just like our local sheriff's departments and our teachers, and we feel like this budget has done that. But those are all great things. But and Israel and I are both excited about school construction money finally being in there, and we're excited about we got $11.5 million for economic development programming at UVA-wise. And $3.5 million for childcare capacity, increased childcare capacity in Southwest Virginia. But one of the things I'm happiest about is $465,000 to finish the Mendota Trail in Bristol, because we have the Creeper Trail in Abingdon that's super successful, and it drives tourism.
Explain what this is to the audience.
So it's the Creeper Trail and the Mendota Trail are both rails to trails.
Okay.
Trails that biking and hiking trails that are, they're former rail beds, so they're flat and gradual climb or decline. And they're something that really, I think we're utilized, not overutilized during the pandemic. People didn't have anywhere else or anything else to do. So the trails were getting just hammered, and people really recognize their importance. So anytime you go to the parking lot around the Creeper Trail here in Abingdon, which is a 17-mile trail from Abingdon up to the top of the mountain, White Top. So anytime you do that, you see cars from North Carolina, Michigan, Ohio. So it's really become an economic driver for here. And that's what we expect for the Mendota Trail that's in Bristol to do the same thing. And it's a 12-mile trail that's not, it's got some trestles that are bridges that are being completed now. But this additional funding, we've all carried budget amendments for it, but this additional funding will push it over and will complete it sooner than they ever expected. So those are, even those little things in the budget, that doesn't seem like a little, but in the budget like we have, that's not as large as the other things that we have, but it's certainly something we're proud of, making sure that that's completed, because it's, for a community like Mendota, it's really something they're very proud of.
Well, it's one of those great quality of life add-ons that just anyone can take advantage of. And, when you're trying to put together an economic development package for a region, you say, we've got this, and we've got this, and we've got this, and we've got this coming and that coming. And people can go, we can invest here a long time. So I think what you've laid out there in the budget, everyone goes, it's, everyone has a problem with the budget. Everyone has good things in the budget. And there's always a tough no vote or an easy yes vote, depending on how you want to, play the game back and forth. But the reality is, if you have money to fight over, it's a lot easier to negotiate and debate a budget than it is when you don't have the money.
Oh, for sure.
And it absolutely underscores the need to continually keep our economic development efforts in the Commonwealth razor sharp, so that we're the most competitive state in the country, not just because we're so close to the largesse of the federal government, but we're also developing those economies regionally and locally, especially for areas like y'all.
Right, and that's another thing that we looked at in the budget. We put money in for site development because we felt like there were some sites that we, if we'd had the site in place, we could have, and that's not just here, that's South Side and all over the Commonwealth.
Sure,
that we could have recruited some industries if the sites were developed and VDP had them in their book, and they could have said, okay, we can put you here, but we just weren't ready for that. And we also put money to study putting an inland port either in Bristol or Lynchburg. There's money, or both. We know that the one that we have in Virginia now is in Front Royal. It has about a 6,000 employee impact to that region. So we have a lot of goods out here in Southwest Virginia, even into East Tennessee, that we feel like we could put on the train and get to the port, and also get people off Interstate 81. So, because if you traveled Interstate 81 recently, it is a nightmare, to say the least.
Let's I grew up on that interstate. It was my backyard, literally, from where our plant was in Stanton. We used to run down to Wytheville and up past Winchester.
Right.
I was in route trucks and vans for years and years. What are we going to do about 81, gentlemen? You went there, let's go there. I was intimately familiar with that road. What's it going to take?
So, I mean, we have an 81 commission that I'm a part of. That, a couple of years ago, we did put money in the budget to program to complete 81, and it's now happening. It's not happening as fast as some other roads in the Commonwealth that we see that are going to be completed sooner than that. But we definitely have a seat at the table now. We have Southwest Virginia leadership in the House that. I mean, Terry Kilgore has driven 81 more than anyone, I think, in the entire Commonwealth. And he starts, at exit 1 and goes to 220. And so he recognizes the importance of it. I think our speaker recognizes, or Speaker of the House recognizes the importance of 81. Israel and I have traveled 81 together more times than we can count. it's definitely something that needs to be done. And I think that there's going to be the House Transportation Chair, Terry Austin is he's on it. He is
right there.
Yeah, he is very honed in on making sure that 81 gets the attention that it deserves and gets those projects completed sooner than later.
And it's a tough road to work on because of the topography of where it comes through, and by the very nature, you have lots of rivers and creeks and ravines and inclines and declines, and the cost per mile is very expensive. So there is some dedicated funding that goes to that, and there's, as Senator Pillion said, there are some projects. You have some climbing lanes and some areas that you can kind of alleviate some of that pressure that's on 81. But I'm no traffic engineer, but it's going to definitely take some combination of additional lanes as well as finding other ways to take some of that traffic off of there. And I think certainly the rails and the inland port and whatnot has that potential.
Yeah, it's an interstate highway. It's the domain of the federal government. It seems like the folks that represent that area, from Morgan Griffith to Ben Klein, have been in the legislature. It's like the team is available, at least in Virginia, to make the sale to the federal government that this piece of interstate is absolutely critical to our nation's economic infrastructure.
Right, you're correct, and I think that Mark Warner and Tim Kaine recognize its importance too. Of course, those other guys, they drive it just like we do, so they see it a little bit differently than just from their experience. They recognize the importance of it. So, there's a lot of federal infrastructure dollars that are going to be coming down, and whether it be for rail or highways or bridges, we're hoping to get every single penny we can.
Let's shift to healthcare. Medicaid expansion, big issue several years ago. We've come into a pandemic where you have a lot more COVID people being moved into the Medicaid system. And eventually that's going to rub up against K through 12. What are we doing and what should we be doing to get ahead of that potential collision?
Great question.
That's a good question. It's and that was lots of people had reasons as to why they did or didn't support Medicaid expansion. There must have been a dozen different reasons on either side of it, but the potential inflation of the overall program and the cost thereof, I think, was one of the main concerns, and sort of here we are. You could also, I've heard the opposite argument of, the cost of doing nothing is more than that, and that may be true. But yeah, I think we're probably headed that direction.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation and I supported the Medicaid expansion for the reasons that were laid out, and that the federal government said it wouldn't go below 90%, and we're all real concerned about that. And I like the reforms that were in the package initially that were taken out. Let's be honest, by the previous administration, that was a bad deal. Bad on their part, on Governor Northam's part, to get out of the deal that he struck with Chris Jones and Emmett Hanger to get the deal done. All those great conservative reforms that would have reshaped the entire program made it almost too good to pass up, because that's avoiding the eventual collision in the budget between K through 12 and Medicaid. And now you have this massive expansion with COVID, which has exacerbated that potential. And we now have 2 million people on the Medicaid rolls. It's going to be even more painful to get them off if they're no longer eligible.
Right. One way that we get them off is there's plenty of jobs that are available, and hopefully we can recondition and get some of those people duly employed in the Commonwealth right now. We certainly have an economic crisis going on with just a lack of employees, and you'll see for hire signs all over
what is it? We have 11 million jobs open in this country. We've got low unemployment, and yet you talk to almost any employer, they can't get people to show up to work.
No.
Well, and unemployment is a very different metric than workforce participation. And, workforce participation is low. unemployment is also low. So you've got a lot of people that have just dropped out of the workforce. And I've read, I don't know, dozens of articles in the last few months, and you definitely had, particularly, there's a huge shortage of females in the workforce, and it's well documented that a lot of females have dropped out and just said, look, I'm going to take care of my kid, and I'm not going to work right now, period. So to Senator Pillion's point earlier on childcare, that's certainly one of the big things that's held us back in Southwest Virginia is, the lack of childcare. And so I think that's a part of it. I read an article just a couple of weeks ago that had a very interesting premise. It was actually more of kind of an academic study than just a pure article. And essentially said that, that our parents' generation generated more wealth than at any point in history. Mm-hmm. And that the next generation, which would be, I guess, us younger, sort of more millennial types, sure, now don't have to work because of that wealth. And a lot of them, as all of this sort of played out in the last couple of years, looked and said, well, I'm getting $2 million from dad or granddad. Why the heck would I go to work every day? And that wealth is in the process of transferring from one generation to another. And a lot of financial advisors always say it's hard to transfer wealth past the third generation, and I think we're at that point now. So, you got some folks who are willing to spend it down to zero before they go back to the workforce, and so you add all of these strange things together, and you end up here. And during COVID, it was very easy to point and say, well, people are being essentially paid not to work. And that's true. There were people pulling down right at $1,000 a week to not work. And in some cases it was warranted, in other cases not. We sort of learned that the hard way through a lot of various constituent interaction. But nevertheless, we're past that point. Those enhanced benefits have run out long ago. And we're definitely seeing something else happening at this moment. And I don't think it's just one thing. I think it's several things happening all at once.
Yeah, there is a confluence of factors here, but the end result is I can't tell you the number of employers or managers I speak with and run into, not insofar as my job is concerned, but in my job at Virginia Free, but just talking to local restaurant owners and shop managers, they can't find help. They'll have 100 people apply for a job. They'll bring, an offer to 20. 5 will show up for the first shift, and it's how do you have that many people apply to want the job and then not show up? So I think it's probably worth a bit of a legislative study to find out just what the heck's going on out here.
Right, and that's what you're commenting on is the same thing that we're hearing from all of our folks in Southwest Virginia. Our businesses are, in fact, we had a meeting just a week ago talking to all of our manufacturers about how can we help them fill their vacancies in employment, and they're desperate. They're desperate for employees. It's in fact, it's decreasing their production because of that. And they're trying their best to hold on to the employees that they have, because their employees that they have are tired. And
it takes toll on everybody at that point.
Right. Yep. It does. So those are things that we're looking at, and you're right. Maybe it does need a JLARC study or a study or something to encourage that.
I mean, I think just we need to put some data on the deck so we can start solving a problem here.
Right.
It's one of those elements that we've been talking about, this continuing the conversation here about the need for economic development to create the resources of revenue for the Commonwealth to fund the core services and do the things that we talk about. The lip service that we give, not y'all. Senator, I don't know how you phrased it, but what you've been talking about, putting your money where your mouth is, not pejoratively. I'm trying to understand this so that we can get to solve the problem, because we need to have a driving, growing, thriving economy to generate those revenues to do the things we want to do in our core services. And I think once we have some data points, we can go, oh, here are the problems. Because if people are applying for jobs and being in that process and getting their unemployment benefits, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely. And that's where we've been for the past couple of years. When employers are coming to you and say, I can't hire them if you're paying them more than I can pay them to sit at home. What do you expect? So, thankfully we're on the tail end, I believe, of the pandemic. And hopefully we can get back to work.
And I think that particular problem was a philosophical difference between the prior administration and this administration. But I think that the pandemic and then now moving into where we're at exposed the fact that there were some massive structural issues at the Virginia Employment Commission.
Yeah, VEC was a disaster.
Look, it's not just Virginia's problem. It's everywhere. I was in New York
right.
2 weekends ago, and it's everywhere.
Well, they weren't designed to take this much at one time.
No.
It was never designed to hold that.
Yeah. We went through an extraordinary time, and I think as a nation, we should be able to pat ourselves on the back to say we got through it as best we can, quite frankly. But, I had an idea back in the McDonnell administration. I pitched it to them. Why take away the benefits straight away? I mean, wean them off the benefits, but don't take away the will to work and make more money at the same time. Because if you go to work, the thought is, well, you lose the benefits. Well, just scale them down and transition them away from it, but don't penalize them from going to work.
I mean, I think it's something that deserves a fresh look in light of where we've been in the last couple of years, and that kind of activity is just not sustainable. And as far as sort of restructuring VC, I would venture to guess that's probably on the top 3 list of Governor Youngkin.
Yeah, is it really? Is that bad?
Okay. Oh, he came in fired up about it.
Oh yeah, VC, DMV. I think those are two of the 3 or 4 that he's really looking at. So.
Well, Senator and Delegate, how long does it take you all to get here? What's your drive time to Richmond?
Legally?
Yes, legally, said the lawmaker.
Give or take.
Legally?
Give or take,
it should take
5 yeah, give or take, it's 5 hours. I mean, it's if you hit a jam on Interstate 81, it might be 5.5 or 6.
Okay.
If we get out of session at 9 o'clock at night and you're driving at midnight, you can make a little better time. But yeah, it's about 5.5 hours, no matter which way you slice it.
Right.
How quickly does Terry Kilgore make it in?
I'm sure he obeys the law.
3.
He obeys the laws of the Commonwealth, just like we do, Chris.
Well,
so
apparently Israel doesn't by self.
Hey.
He's self-identified.
So Terry lives 45 minutes past the two of us. 45 minutes past the two of us. We live about 5 to 10 minutes apart. So he lives about 45 minutes past us. So he has the longest drive. So. But somehow he can beat us to Richmond lots of times. So
this is my shock face.
Yeah, I know. Well, he knows the way. He knows the way.
He knows.
He's driven it. He's driven it a few times, and he's got his mother's cookies and cakes in the back seat, so he doesn't have to stop. He can just snack all the way to Richmond. Yeah,
made in the shade. Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate your service for all your miles, not just on Interstate 81, but driving around your districts and talking to your citizens out there and representing them well in the legislature. And look forward to seeing you back here on Friday. That's July. What is it? July 17th.
That's right, July 17th.
Wow, cutting it close. 2 weeks to go.
We're looking forward to getting this finished.
I bet that wasn't on purpose, right?
No.
Got into that close. Yeah.
No, man. Anyway, thanks for your service. Hopefully got a good budget done. And thanks for joining the VIP podcast, available to you on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Subscribe, like, and share. This is the VIP podcast, brought to you by VCTA, the Broadband Association of Virginia, and Virginia Free, of which I am its executive director. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.